Good morning. Welcome to Up to the Minute. I'm Todd Duplantis, and it's good to have you with us on the show. It's a Monday. I know it feels like a Monday, but here we are for another work week. But the good thing about this week, and my co-host can testify to this, is that we've got one more week, and we're going to go on spring break. So that's always cool. Dr. Nicholas Caucus is joining me this morning. Nick, it's good to see you. Are you ready for spring break?
You bet. You bet. I don't know an instructor out there in this country that's not ready for spring break.
We're all ready for spring break collectively, but that's coming up. But we got a full work week ahead, so we're going to keep you up to date with your HCC news and information. Two guests coming your way very shortly. It's also Mental Health Monday. We'll get to that in a moment. But thanks to all of you watching us on Facebook Live and YouTube. We're here just about every morning. HCC is in session. And Nick, they can also catch us in social media anytime and also on HCCTV.
That's right, Todd. We're live on the Houston Community College District Facebook page and on YouTube. We're also on Twitter, LinkedIn, and HCCTV at noon and 10 p.m., 5 p.m., Monday through Friday.
That's right. Okay, let's kick things off and get things rolling here. We're going to introduce you to our second guest, who's going to be joining us shortly, Dr. Sean Fitzpatrick. Dr. Fitzpatrick is the executive director of the Jung Center of Houston, and he's a Mental Health Monday guest, reoccurring guest. We love having him here. Good to see you, Sean.
It's a joy to be with you, Todd. There's no better way to start a Monday than to be with y'all. So it's good to see you.
Well, glad to have you with us. We're looking forward to talking with you shortly. Real quickly, what are we going to be talking about today?
Today, we're going to be talking about conscience. How we make decisions about right and wrong.
There you go. Boy, that's going to be an interesting conversation. We'll get with you in a few minutes. Stick around, Sean. We're going to kick things off right now. Nick, you've got a special guest talking about Women's History Month, which happens all this month.
That's right, Todd. Welcome back to the show, Dr. Adil. We're looking forward to hearing more about your upcoming events.
Yeah, good morning, Nick. Thank you so much for having me, and happy Monday. I'm excited about spring break coming up.
Well, great. Let's begin and talk a little bit about this week's special event celebrated around the world. Tell us about it.
All right. So March, as Todd mentioned, it's a Women History Month. So in the month of March, there are tons of celebration, advocacy, awareness events that are hosted throughout the city. So we are also on March 8th specifically, it's known for International Women's Day. So throughout the world, on that day, people celebrate International Women's Day and come out and celebrate successes, whether it is political achievements or economic or cultural or social achievements of women. They all come together and celebrate.
Well, Dr. Adil, some of our viewers might be surprised by this, but how long have we been celebrating International Women's Day?
400 years. And I know I'm not that old, but that's what I've been told and that's what I have read. So it's been going on, and we are making, significant changes, and women's are really empowered, and they are coming out, they are being acknowledged for their work. And now we know that, they're leadership positions, and so it's going very well. But yeah, it's been a long history of women's achievement that we have been celebrating.
Now, as a historian, I know that a little bit over 100 years ago, 1910s, 1920s, the women's movement was really focused on accessing the right to vote, among other civil rights. What are some things that International Women's Day focuses on today?
So they are focusing on parity, and they are just focusing on, equity. This year, the International Women's Day theme is related to technology and parity in technology, equity in technology, bringing women's there. So not every country is at the same place. Not every organization is in the same place. So just making sure that there is equity and women's are, not just working, but they are acknowledged, they're trained, and we are making sure that we empower them in that specific area.
Well, fantastic. Tell us how HCC is partnering with the United Nations Association and the City of Houston to celebrate International Women's Day.
So this year on March 8th, we are partnered with City of Houston and United Nations Association to celebrate International Women's Day. They're bringing a lot of elected officials. Mayor Turner probably stopped by. We have Consul General of France. She will be speaking, and our own Dr. Frances Glover, she will be speaking as well. So yes, all faculty, staff, and students are invited. So you're welcome to join.
Now, I understand you're playing a role yourself this year. What is your?
So my role we are doing this event at Southeast College, and I'm invited as a panelist speaker to just talk about women empowerment. So I will be speaking. I try to do whatever I can. In the past, last year too, returning from COVID, we have had celebrations at HCC campuses, different campuses, just to get the students to know and celebrate with us. And, you know, all the presidents came out and they spoke. We did a panel last year. So this year we are also doing something at HCC. This one is at Southeast College. And, you know, I'm looking forward to that. That's after spring break.
All right. Well, I know that when International Women's Day passes, or when the Women's History Month of March ends, the work still continues. And I'd wonder if you'd tell us a little bit about your involvement in various professional associations like the Federation of Houston Professional Women or the Association of Women in Academia that you work on year-round. What do these organizations do for women?
Would these organizations are very good. And the other organization I'm also part of is the Greater Women Chamber of Commerce. But this month is specifically every organization, whether it is World Chamber of Commerce, March 8th, they're also doing dinner to celebrate women's. But throughout the year, they do highlight women's, whether women's are in business or politics or, you know, education, anything that they are doing to support. And the idea behind it is not just, you know, highlight the people who are successful, but also just create a pathway and inspire other youth generation to make sure that they are ready and they are supported, and we mentor them. So yeah, there are so many things that they do, raise funds for scholarships, professional developments to support women. So yeah, that has been my work, and I've been actively involved in that kind of work.
Well, no, that's really great to hear. And I think it's important and significant work. One thing about International Women's Day is it's also a global event, and your work with the United Nations is a part of your interest in not just women's issues, but issues related to global Houston. For example, you serve on the United Nations Association Board of Directors here in Houston. And I saw that you were involved with Aspire, which is focused on Asian student scholarship. What about the international side of International Women's Day? What are the things that you think of beyond March related to our global community that HCC works on, that you work on?
So a lot of things are going on. Specifically, I do want to mention, because that has been keep coming in Iran. A lot of women, there are controversies going on, and women are fighting for their basic rights. It is not just one place. There are all different kind of countries, and the women's issues are specific to different regions where they are. So, you know, gender equity, basic human rights, sometimes that is an issue too. So it's specific to different regions. We do bring in different consul generals, and we also host dialogue with diplomats to see what is being done and what can we do and how we can educate our future generation. So one of the event that we are bringing that is specific to Ukraine, because that's a war zone these days, we are bringing a Consul General of Ukraine in April to Houston Community College, and we are working on that event to kind of just, bring some awareness and see how we can support from here and also understand what they are going through and living through.
Well, great. Thank you very much, Dr. Adil. I really appreciate you mentioning the Ukraine and Iran, because I think a lot of our students keep their attention on both of those international crises. And personally, I'd really like to see a lot more coverage of what's happening in Iran during International Women's Month and beyond, because that seems, like a really undercovered international episode happening right now. And again, let me thank you for all that you've done for women, for international events, and for HCC this month during International Women's History Month.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me here, and keep inviting. I'll keep bringing you new content.
All right. Thank you both for being here. Okay, we're going to move on. It is Mental Health Monday. One of our favorite guests, Dr. Sean Fitzpatrick. He's Executive Director of the Jung Center of Houston and our Mental Health Monday guest. Good to see you, Sean. Welcome back to the show.
Todd, it's good to see you. I'm glad to be back.
Okay, so I was reading through notes and I'm thinking, okay, everybody, we know the difference between right and wrong. I guess where it gets really messy is we have this thing called a conscience. And, we decide we're going to move on with our life. We're going to do this. We made this decision. This is what we're going to do. But the conscience comes back and says, wait a second. So how do you make these big decisions about what's right and wrong? I'm sure you can answer this in 10 minutes or so, right?
Yeah, right. We're going to knock this out. So obviously a big and complex topic that thousands of books have been written about. But what I would focus on actually is an image. We'll start with an image that I hopefully for many of us is familiar. I'm aging, so I assume it's familiar to younger people, but maybe not, which is Jiminy Cricket.
Oh, yeah.
Jiminy Cricket, right, from Pinocchio. So the Disney movie Pinocchio has Jiminy Cricket. Actually, I think he shows up in the most recent Pinocchio too, but I haven't seen it yet. So Jiminy Cricket is this figure that Pinocchio is famously, right, he's the boy, he's actually a toy, he's a wooden boy, and if he behaves well, then he can become a real boy, right? If he could, if he finds his own way to his soul, right? He can become a human boy. Well, so as he's going through the world, he has this little cricket that shows up whenever he's about to do something wrong. And it's Jiminy Cricket, and Jiminy steps up and he says, "Hey, don't go this way, don't do this." And I love the image. I wish all of our consciences be treated us the way that Jiminy Cricket treats Pinocchio, which is much kinder than I think our consciences often tend to be. They can tend to be quite intense, our experiences of conscience. But I think it's a useful way of thinking about how we make these decisions. There's a part of us that sort of speaks up to guide our behavior.
My dad always gave me advice, and he had told me this years ago. He's like, make a decision, move forward, and don't look back. Don't look back. Don't have regrets. Just move forward with it. And it sounds very pragmatic. It's something I guess that, he could do or whatever. But most of us have a conscience or this little voice that pops up in our head and said, where are you going? What are you doing? Where does that come from?
So again, a great question. And I like that. I like your father's perspective because it sounds very pragmatic. Right. We have to be able to make decisions in the world and move forward. Otherwise, we'd just be paralyzed. And not moving is a form of choice, right? Not choosing is a form of choice. So conscience can have a couple of different, actually, let's start with that, the ways in which conscience can paralyze us. So I'd like to sort of focus on two feelings that I associate with conscience and where they sort of how they reflect it. So the first one is shame. Which is the fear that there's something fundamentally wrong with us, right? Or the experience that there's something wrong with us. And, conscience often comes from whatever voice has spoken to us, the moral code of the community we're a part of. So there are many different moral codes, right? Depending on what religious background you have, who you're, where you were taught, who your parents were, what political, affiliation your parents have or you've come to know. And so conscience ends up being the voice of the moral code. And that has really important protective value because if you break the law, if you do something that's against the moral code, there can be real consequences for you. You can be exiled. Yeah. You could go to prison, or you could so on and so forth. So the first function of conscience is protective in that way, in that it's telling you if you step outside of this code, something terrible may happen to you as a human being. So you have to stay inside this way of viewing the world.
Does our conscience then, is it trying to protect us?
I think fundamentally it is. It may not actually be able to guide us in a world that is increasingly complex. And that's why I would say there's a second experience that we have that I would associate with conscience, which is compassion. So we have the capacity to feel what other people are feeling. That's empathy. And sometimes when we are empathetic, we experience empathy with someone else, then we also feel a desire to change their circumstances. So for people who are suffering in some way, then we feel this urgency within us to help. And that is compassion, right? It's empathy plus the desire to change circumstances for someone else. And that also can rise up within us with a very strong voice and say, you must take action here. And in those cases, it may actually be against our capacity or what is best for us in terms of survival. It may be that it threatens the stability of our life in dramatic ways, or just where we are in our community, what people think of us, or whether we're able to continue to pursue our livelihood. So sometimes conscience speaks up in a way that is maybe immediately against what is best for us as human beings, but gets at something more fundamental about how connected we all are. And so, yeah, it can be complex. Right? So we can find ourselves in conflict with ourselves.
Well, that's was going to be where I'm leading into here. That conflict seems like that's what can be paralyzing at times. I guess it goes back, we know the difference between right and wrong, but sometimes you have to make difficult decisions and move forward with it. How do we decide on that?
So let me give you an example of this. I think very briefly, let me say the short answer is you kind of have to suffer it. If you're in a moral conflict, right, you've got conscience speaking to you in a couple of different ways. You actually have to sit in it and not run away from it. So the example I'd have for you is of a parent whose child, who's a part of a religious community that says, being gay is wrong, and their child comes out to them. Well, they can be caught in a very difficult dilemma because their moral code tells them that this is wrong, and that actually supporting it is in its way sinful. Supporting their child is sinful. But the other side of that is the compassion and love that the parent has for the child. And these are both probably values that are embedded in that religious tradition, right? Yeah. So you have to hold it. And often when we don't race to a conclusion, usually the decision we race to, not usually, but often the decision we race to is the easy answer. It's the answer that's going to allow us to continue to feel safe. And sometimes we need to not be safe. Sometimes we need to hold it and risk a choice that might go against our moral code.
So really feeling uncomfortable, you're going to have to feel uncomfortable with it. Doesn't mean it's wrong though, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's discomfort is a part of real moral discernment, and understanding that there's no one right answer. Often there's value in each perspective that is being shown to us, or each impulse that we feel. Holding the tension of those conflicting positions is what will lead us to growth, right? The path of most growth, and maybe sometimes to a resolution that we don't expect, right?
Yeah. Sean, you guys have spring has sprung in the city of Houston, and you guys have a lot going on at the Jung Center. Any upcoming events you want to share about?
Yeah, sure. So it happens on Wednesday nights. I don't often talk about my stuff, but Wednesday night I'm going to be teaching a class called Popcorn Psychology. Starts at 4 weeks, 4 Wednesday nights at 14 Pews, which is this fantastic nonprofit that is it calls itself the Church of Cinema. It's located up in the Heights. And so we'll start on Wednesday with Minority Report. And so people can come at 4 o'clock and watch the movie, or they can join us at, I think it's 6:45 for the class starts at 6:45. And so you can watch it on your own. And then next week, we'll be watching Camera Person, which is a great documentary. And then we'll be watching Lone Star, the John Sayles movie, and Waking Life, which is a Richard Linklater movie.
And do you sign up ahead of time for this? How did that work?
You can sign up on the spot if you'd like at 14 Pews. You can also just go to the Jung Center's website or the 14 Pews website. Either one will find you to the way to register.
All right, Sean, it's always good to see you. And hopefully folks can get a little bit more clarity on right and wrong. And sometimes the wrong decision may be the right one. You just don't know. As long as it may be uncomfortable, but you got to get through it from what you're saying.
That's right. Yeah. And history will tell us more down the road. Right.
Dr. Sean Fitzpatrick, he's the executive director of the Jung Center of Houston. We'll have all of your information, especially in your class coming up, in our social media post after the show. Thanks, Sean.
You bet. Take care, Todd.
All right, we've got a few announcements to get through, Nick. One of them, a successful job fair and networking. This is a virtual event. Though virtual, this Southwest Career Services workshop will teach you how to leverage the benefits of attending a career fair in person and how to stand out from the crowd. It happens today, March the 6th, from 1 to 2 p.m. We'll have some registration information in our post after the show. And Central also has a very important presentation tomorrow as well.
That's right. The Central campus is offering suicide prevention workshop through the counseling services. They're offering QPR gatekeeper suicide prevention training tomorrow. Like CPR, there are 3 steps anyone can learn to help prevent suicide. Question, persuade, and refer is an emergency response to someone in crisis, and it does save lives. That training will be tomorrow, Tuesday, March 7th, from 1 to 2 p.m. For details and to register, email Roman Alvarez at hccs.edu.
Okay, the HCC Creative Writing Club, I should say, is looking for the best fiction, creative, nonfiction, poetry, artwork, scripts, even comics from our students for their Journal of Arts and Writing. It's called Vocable. Submissions are open through March 23rd. To learn more, we'll have a link in our post after the show where you can check it out. And there's also a Healthy Relationship Scholarship that's underway right now.
That's right, students. If you're looking for an extra $500, HCC's counseling service, the faculty, and the Office of Institutional Equity are offering 2 Healthy Relationship Scholarships. Qualifying HCC students can share their love of art or prose by writing a 500-word essay or creating any piece of artwork. The deadline to submit their essay or art is Sunday, April 9th. Check our post after the show for the email for submissions.
Okay, show your Skills USA competition. That's happening. HCC, in partnership with Skills USA, will host the Texas Post-Secondary Skills and Leadership Competition this spring. All HCC students enrolled in a technical workforce class can compete. It happens Wednesday through Friday, April the 13th through the 15th. We'll have some information in our post after the show with all the details. And Nick, you know this very well. If students want to get some credit hours in before the semester ends, you can do it, but there's a catch because they're shorter, condensed courses.
Yes, Todd, that's right. The spring semester is not even halfway through yet, and we have an 8-week session that begins right after spring break on March 20th. So if students want to take classes in the spring, starting March 20th, they really need to register as soon as possible. Today, however, summer enrollment has also opened. So registration has begun. HCC is offering smaller, more intensive spring sessions. All courses in the spring and summer should be offered in person and online. We've got lots of modalities: online anytime, online on a schedule, hybrid, in person, and hybrid labs. So check the registration and see if there's a class in the spring or summer that you'd like to take.
One website for all your registration needs. Go to hccs.edu/apply. So we mentioned spring break. We're going to be off next week. Are you going out of town for spring break? Any big plans?
You know, my son is going to take a little history tour with his school district, doing a civil rights tour through Atlanta, Birmingham, Selma. And so he'll be off with school friends. I might have to do a little solo road trip myself.
Well, that sounds cool. That sounds cool. All right. Well, good deal. Well, enjoy your spring break, Nick. We'll see you again sometime when you're on the show. We look forward to that. And thanks for being here. Next, tomorrow, we'll be continuing our celebration of Women's History Month and with English and Humanities professor, Dr. Melinda Mejia. She'll be discussing guest speakers. She has lined up to talk about the special month. And it's Tasty Tuesday. We'll revisit a great Mexican restaurant, that's also good for you. That'll be interesting. All that and more tomorrow. Join us live 10 a.m. for Up to the Minute.